to talk about Shohei Ohtani, the 2024 award winner for the Hank Aaron Award, Best Offensive Player in the National League. No surprise here, Daniel, that Ohtani wins this award. Nobody's expecting any surprises in about a week when the MVP awards are announced. I just wanted to put into context the season he had, kind of reflect before we move on. For you, when you look back on the 2024 that Ohtani had, what stands out to you the most?
I mean, where to start is the question, but I think the 50-50 obviously jumps out, and just the game that he had in Miami to reach it, like that was one of the best single games ever, and the fact that he did it to reach that milestone was absolutely incredible. So I know Shohei got paid a lot, and this was the year that he wasn't pitching. So in theory, like this, if there's any year where he wouldn't be worth that contract, it would have been this year. And I think he still was worth every penny with the season he put out. Like you said, he's going to win the MVP in a week or so, or whenever they give that out. And there's literally never been a DH to win the MVP award, and this one was super well deserving. So as much as he was hyped up, you know, coming into his first season with the Dodgers, he somehow found a way to exceed it. And that's not even taking into account everything that he went through, you know, off the field and with how things started with the Ippei stuff and just all the hype and whatnot. So well deserved for Shohei, and just an incredible season.
It's interesting you say that, because the question that keeps rattling around in my mind feels like a very stupid question. I'm just going to say that out loud before I pose this question, which is like, did Ohtani somehow exceed expectations in 2024? And obviously, this question is relative to what your expectations were. But keep in mind, this is a guy that the year before he signed, he led all of Major League Baseball in OPS. And we knew he wasn't going to pitch, so that was baked into the expectations. But he basically came in as the best hitter in Major League Baseball. And so the question is, hey, he's going to win the MVP. Yeah, he wins Best Offensive Player in the National League. Yeah, but did he exceed expectations? I dug into his numbers a little bit. Look at all the categories he set career highs in this past season. He set a career high in home runs, a franchise record, by the way. Second in Major League Baseball, 8 more than ever. Here's a fun stat on home runs, by the way, from MLB.com. He had more home runs travel 450 feet or longer than every team in the league except for the Rockies. The Rockies were the only team as a team to hit more 450-foot bombs than him. Career high in runs by 31, led the league. Career high in RBIs by 30, second in Major League Baseball. Career high in steals, 33 more than ever, only caught 4 times, second in baseball. Career high in batting average. Not a career high in on-base percentage, but he led the league in on-base percentage. Career high in slugging percentage. Career high in weighted runs created plus. Career high in offensive WAR. 2.6 wins above replacement more than any offensive season he had ever had in his career. If you want to get a little nerdier, he finished in the 99th or 100th percentile in expected weighted on-base average, expected batting average, expected slug, exit velocity, barrel rate, and hard hit rate. He was either in the 99th percentile, which means top 3, or top 1 in every single one of those categories, and every single one had a career high except for barrel rate. Daniel, when I reflect on this, I don't think I realized how much better Shohei Ohtani was in 2024 than he'd literally ever been as a hitter before this.
Yeah, and it felt like he could have been even better, honestly, and that's pretty crazy to think about. And I know he wasn't pitching at the same time, so you know a lot of his focus this season was on hitting. But I do think it's important to remember the guy's rehabbing from Tommy John surgery. Like, it's not like, you know, he wasn't dedicating a lot of his time, you know, to that rehab. And yeah, of course, it's an injury at the end of the day. And it obviously didn't affect his swing that much. But I still think in the back of his mind, the fact that he's rehabbing from major, you know, elbow surgery was always there. So just the fact that he was able to do this, you know, was incredible. All the pressure on him, like it felt like when he was down in Anaheim having great years, like there was just no pressure just because he didn't have to worry about the playoffs or anything like that. And yeah, he obviously signs this big deal with the Dodgers, and there was an inherent amount of pressure that comes with that. Obviously, we know the Dodgers are in the business of winning championships and whatnot. And, you know, this was really kind of the first time he was kind of playing, you know, with that in the back of his mind, knowing that, hey, there's a greater goal here. I'm not just going out and getting my own numbers and whatnot. And, of course, we saw how decimated the starting rotation was. You know, they lost Mookie for a long period. They lost Muncy for a long period. Like, you know, Shohei really was the glue that kind of kept it all together. And now look back, they won the World Series. Of course, a lot of guys, you know, had their part in that. But I think, this series could have been a lot different if, let's say, they didn't end up getting Shohei and they still had a similar roster. Like, we might have been talking about how the Dodgers were a wild card team, or maybe, this was finally the year where everything caught up with them and they missed the playoffs just because of how many pitchers they were without. But Shohei was there every step of the way, producing every step of the way. And it's pretty crazy. Like, I'm excited to see what he's going to do next year to kind of top it. And of course, he'll be pitching as well. So that'll be fun to watch. But, when I look back on this season, and of course we have 9 more, so we'll see how those play out. But it's going to be, at least from an offensive perspective, like, it's going to be hard to top this one.
Yeah. And you just mentioned a stat that I didn't bring up. He also set a career high in games played this season, 159 games played, which, to your point, with all of the injuries they suffered primarily on the offensive side as it relates to him, but also on the pitching side. Like, one of the things our show was consistent about throughout the season was this team is going to win with offense. And yes, the pitching had big moments in the postseason and the bullpen had big moments. But keep in mind that this team won, I think it was like 5 games in the postseason in which they allowed 5 or more earned runs. And that's because the offense carried them. And Shohei Ohtani, well, his contribution in various rounds of the postseason after he hurts his shoulder maybe have been a little bit of an up and down, and sometimes in ways you can't quantify. What he did to keep this team in it throughout the regular season, I think, to your point, needs to be acknowledged. And I hesitate to agree with you that I don't know if we're going to see a better offensive season from Ohtani, but it's also like you're looking at this, what would a better offensive season look like? I mean, like, he hit 54 home runs, was second in Major League, or he was second in the National League in batting average at the same time. He set career highs in every single category. And, he did this in his age 29 season, which means he's not out of his prime yet, but it's crazy to think. Now, the question will be, which you hinted at, what does he look like once he starts pitching? It worth pointing out, we don't know when he's going to start pitching. The shoulder injury that he suffered in the postseason seems like it could impact his ability to start pitching right at the beginning of 2025. We don't know what that means for his ability to start playing DH in the beginning of 2025 either. But I imagine the shoulder will be fine offensively, but it's going to delay his rehab from pitching. When I think of Mookie Betts has said playing on the infield in some ways actually made him better offensively because it kept him engaged. It forced him to focus in ways that, playing a position he had his entire life. Is there any chance that Ohtani's wired in a way where pitching is actually going to make him a better hitter?
I don't know about better, just because, like you just said, it's hard to be better than what he just was. Yeah. But I do think it's something he's done before, so I don't think it'll affect him too much. The only thing I think it'll probably affect, and we've talked about this before, like, I don't think he's going to come out and steal 50 bases again next year, just because, you kind of want to conserve that energy, I guess you could say, and not avoid the injury risk. As we saw, this shoulder injury in the playoffs, that came from stealing a base, so you kind of want to avoid that risk if you can. And, given all the talent in the organization and what they're presumably going to add this offseason, like, they shouldn't have to chase stolen bases the way they did last year. Like, hopefully, more guys stay healthy and they have a more comfortable lead, and he could kind of just do his thing at the plate, do his thing on the mound, and they're not necessarily in a close division race. We'll see, of course. But, and I did want to address one thing as far as the pitching goes. You mentioned, like, we don't exactly know when he's going to start pitching just because of the shoulder injury and whatnot. And to me, that's probably a good thing, right? Like, the guy's coming off Tommy John surgery. You don't want him going out there and throwing 180, 200 innings, like, and he probably could if he wanted to. It's Shohei Ohtani at the end of the day. But if he starts pitching in mid-May or, early June and, pitches, let's say 120 innings in the regular season, that's ideal, just because you want him to be, fresh and available for the postseason. So as long as he's, hitting and at the top of that lineup on opening day, like, the pitching will come whenever it does. But I'm I think he could have better overall seasons just because you're adding pitching into the mix. But as far as just hitting and everything that comes with that, the base running, you mentioned the runs scored, RBIs, all that, career highs. I don't know if we'll see that next year, but it's Shohei Ohtani, so it's hard not to bet, on that guy.
Yeah, and I'll land the plane with something you said. When he signed this contract and we knew he wasn't going to pitch in 2024, I think there was some sense of, okay, well, he may not be worth, you know, the $70 million, yes, deferred, so 45 million or whatever net present value, if you want to use that number. Maybe he won't be worth that strictly as a hitter, but wait till he starts pitching, and then you're going to, I mean, I don't know how you could possibly argue he wasn't worth $70 million for what he just did. You look at the contract Juan Soto may or may not sign, it's somewhere in the same ballpark. All that guy does is hit. We know he didn't field a whole lot either. So Soto's going to get paid. Soto's going to tell us what one of the best hitters of all time gets paid just for hitting, not for fielding, not for pitching. And so keep in mind when you compare that number to Ohtani, who at some point is going to pitch, whether it's as a starter for a few years and then maybe a reliever, or whatever it ends up looking like. Even if you were just a hitter, you could make a case that he was worth every single penny, which is crazy when you consider, oh, by the way, if he gets healthy on the pitching side, he's one of the 5 or 10 best pitchers in Major League Baseball as well. So stay tuned. November 21st is when the MVP will be announced, and you can sit on the edge of your seat and grab your popcorn and wait and cross your fingers to see if Ohtani wins that award. But
we'll see. Well, the only question is, will it be unanimous, or are there some of those East Coast writers who only watched Lindor play this season and think he was the MVP, and maybe Lindor snags a couple votes? We'll see.
Well, hopefully that'd be good content for us if we get a couple New York voters who vote for Lindor or something like that. So thanks everybody for watching. I do want to plug one of our friends, Homage, HOMAGE. They've got a link in our description below. They've got some awesome World Series gear that just got released. They've got like a hoodie and a t-shirt. It's sweet. You can click the link below to go check that out. Their stuff is the most comfortable stuff that I've worn, and I love kind of their retro old school design. So check that out, and stay tuned right here and to Dodger Blue 1958 on social media, because we may or may not have a partnership with them coming up in which we give some folks a chance to win some of their gear. They have lots of non-World Series stuff as well. Jackie Robinson's starter jacket that's on sale for less than $100. So get some Christmas shopping done at Homage and do that at the link below. That is Daniel. I am Jeff, folks. Enjoy the rest of your day. As always, go Dodgers.
2024年のシーズンは翔平・大谷選手にとっても、そして MLB 全体にとっても忘れられない特別な1年となりましたね。ハンク・アーロン賞の受難、そして MVP 候補として名を連ねる彼の名前は、まさに現代野球の象徴そのものです。今年はピッチャーとしての役割が一時的に停止していたものの、打者としての能力はこれまで以上に輝きを放ち、数々の記録を打ち立てました。まず、彼が達成した50本塁打、50盗塁という偉業は、多くのファンにとって永遠に記憶に残る瞬間だったでしょう。特に、マイアミでそのマイルストーンに到達した試合は、MLB 史に残る最高のパフォーマンスの一つと言えますね。また、彼の打撃成績は驚異的で、キャリアハイを次々と更新しました。例えば、159試合に出場し、54本塁打を記録。この数字は、彼の個人的な記録であると同時に、ドジャースのフランチャイズ記録をも更新しました。そして、450フィート以上の本塁打数においては、彼一人がほぼすべてのチームを上回るという驚異的な結果を残しました。さらに、得点や打点、打率、出塁率、長打率など、ほぼすべての主要な打撃指標でリーグトップ、または自己最高記録を樹立。これらの数字は、彼が2024年においてどれほど圧倒的だったかを物語っています。そして、彼のような選手がドジャースに加入したことで、チーム全体のダイナミズムが大きく変わり、ワールドシリーズ制覇へとつながったことは間違いありません。大谷選手の2024年は、個人の記録だけでなく、彼が背負ったプレッシャーやその克服も大きな話題となりました。トミー・ジョン手術からのリハビリを進めながら、彼は新しいチーム環境、そしてワールドシリーズを目指すチームの中核という役割を見事に果たしました。このような重圧の中で、これほどのパフォーマンスを発揮できる選手は、過去にもほとんど存在しません。そして、ドジャースが多くの怪我人に悩まされる中、彼が 攻撃の用としてチームを支えたことはシーズンを通して明らかでした。もし彼がいなければドジャースがプレーオフ進出すら危ぶまれた可能性もあったでしょう。ワールドシリーズの優勝は大谷選手だけでなくチーム全体の努力の賜物ですが、間違いなく彼の存在が大きな原動力となりました。この優勝に至るまでの過程を振り返ると、彼の打撃だけでなく、チーム全体を精神的に支えたリーダーシップの役割も非常に重要だったと感じます。そして彼の活躍はドジャースだけでなく、MLB 全体のファンに新たな希望と興奮をもたらしました。そして、いよいよ2025年、翔平大谷選手は再び二刀流としての役割に戻る準備を進めています。彼の肩の怪我の回復状況を見守りながら、ファンは新シーズンでのそのさらなる活躍に期待しています。投打の両面で最高レベルのパフォーマンスを発揮する彼が、再び歴史を塗り替える瞬間を目撃できるのは、ファンにとって何よりも楽しみなことです。そして、彼がドジャースで新たな伝説を築き、チームを再びワールドシリーズ優勝へと導く姿を期待しています。さらに、彼の活躍が次世代の選手たちに与える影響も大きいですね。大谷選手のように、投打に優れた選手が登場することは、MLB 全体の進化を助長しています。若手選手や未来のスターたちが、彼の姿に影響を受け、さらなる革新をもたらしてくれることでしょう。また、彼のようなグローバルなスターが存在することで、MLB が国際的にさらに注目を集め、ファン層を広げていく可能性もあります。このように、翔平大谷選手の活躍は、個人だけでなく、チームやリーグ全体に大きな影響を与えています。これからのシーズンで、彼がどんな記録を打ち立て、どんな歴史を築くのか、一緒に応援していきましょう。皆さんも、彼のプレーや、この歴史的なシーズンについて、どう感じましたか？ぜひコメント欄でご意見をお聞かせください。そして、この動画が気に入ったら、いいねとチャンネル登録を忘れずにお願いします。これからも最新の MLB ニュースやドジャースに関するエキサイティングな情報をお届けしていきますので、どうぞお楽しみに。2025年も一緒に盛り上がりましょう。